When we have restrictive beliefs, it leads to this pattern of restricting, holding back, withholding from ourselves, depriving ourselves, and then splurging, binging, releasing the floodgates. And truth bomb coming at you here. Restriction is a lack of trust within ourselves. These restrictive patterns happen when we've labeled something as good or bad, and we don't trust ourselves to interact with the in-between, between these two extremes. Restriction is like a pendulum, and the key isn't that the pendulum stops moving, but the swings to the extreme narrow towards a simpler, softer flow in a smaller range. I invite you to take a moment to think about what topic in your life you have attempted to restrict or place restrictions around yourself in the pattern that this has led to. And I do also want to say that if you have or are struggling with an addiction, there are positive ways to restrict and remove those influences or change your relationship with those influences. And please, if you are experiencing that or if you have experienced that, seek professional assistance in handling those behaviors. This video is more for those general unhelpful restrictive patterns that hold us back from being who we truly are here to be. They're the limits that we've placed on ourselves because we see the extreme of the end result being bad, or ourselves being bad for that. And the two most common examples that I've seen or had experience with are food and money. And yay, those are two things that we interact with at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. I'm going to share a quick example personally around money. So growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and money was a restricted resource. And it had the energy of struggle and this tug of war. Like it was necessary, but it was bad, or like being rich was bad. So when I went away to university and got my student loans, I wasn't used to seeing a larger sum of money in one place at one time. My experience with money had been that there's always just enough to get by. So the habit, the pattern that I had with money was this pattern of money coming in, spending it, solving the problems that had accumulated, and then there only being enough for that set of problems, the dynamic problems to be solved, and then having to wait for the next influx of money to solve the next set of problems that money solves. And since then, I have done a lot of work on money, and especially in the past few years, I've really cultivated a strong and healthy dynamic with money. And I will link down in the description box my evergreen course, Intuitively Wealthy for Life, because that really walks through both the practical and the mindset spiritual work that I did in order to change this relationship that I have with money. And through all of this, those extremes of the pendulum shifting have narrowed in scope. And I share this example more to share with you how I recognized this shift in my behaviors. So when money was restricted, My pattern was restrict, 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 splurge. And the way that I knew that that had changed was walking into Lululemon and looking around and feeling really calm in myself and being like, I can buy stuff, but there's nothing here I want. There wasn't a coveting, there wasn't a need, there wasn't a binging quality in my energy. It was just a more neutral place of like, there's nothing here I want. So how does one soften the pendulum swing to being one that's a little bit more neutral? Surprise. Shocker, I'm sure. If you have tuned into a few of my videos, the first step is gaining awareness, bringing the unconscious into the conscious, to notice your patterns, and then get curious about your feelings, your beliefs, and your thoughts around this topic. And as you get curious, as you notice the topic and the thoughts and the beliefs around it, you may start to notice the cycle and the triggers, that tipping point between starvation and excess, and vice versa. Like what triggers the splurge and what triggers the restriction. And then pause and give yourself some compassion. Just because you have noticed these beliefs and these patterns and these triggers doesn't mean you solve them overnight. Doesn't mean you have to fix yourself in the first try. Even just that is a restrictive good or bad thought process. I will link that recent all or nothing thinking video in the description box down below, because from here, start to notice the or thoughts and actions, those all or nothing experiences, and start to play around with the world of ands. I can eat dessert and I can love myself and feel worthy. That belief might be a future belief. There might be a few stepping stone beliefs before you get there, but start to play around with these and beliefs. When we bring in this and way of living, we give ourselves the permission to move towards neutral reactions. The pendulum isn't swinging from one extreme to the other. We start to notice that things can happen together, that things can be true at the same time. You can see restrictive beliefs and patterns when you are seeing an or an if or an all or nothing. The other tool I really love when it comes to approaching these topics from a restriction-free place is to focus on values. And you can find a tool called the Values Venn down in the description box. I'll link to the section of my website that has it, because values help us to align with how we desire to interact versus I can't have. It's I am working towards this, or I want to experience this, therefore this doesn't have value in my sphere right now. When we place the emphasis and the excitement around what we are having, what we desire, what we are looking towards, the things that don't align with that value or with that goal, instead of being restricted, just drift to the side. They become neutral because our focus is somewhere else. When we place the restriction around something, we're putting energy into that thing that we can't have. So I invite you to instead focus on what you are creating, the values aligned with it, and look towards that. I'm currently practicing this because there's this part of me that wants a designer bag because I can, and yet my values of not harming animals is misaligned with this craving for a designer bag. So I'm doing my research into the incredible vegan options that are out there and working towards shifting my belief systems around those having that value for me. Again, this is a practice. We get confronted with these misalignments or with these cravings, and then we do our work. We do our practices. We realign ourselves. And it all starts with awareness. Let me know down in the comments section how this lands for you. If you are looking for some more one-on-one attention in creating this awareness and shifting, then definitely check out the link in the description to find out how to work with me one-on-one. As always, if you are enjoying this content, give it a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, notification bell. If you haven't already checked out the all or nothing or versus and beliefs video, I will link that as well, and I will see you in the next video.